Okay, so we're reading from Bhagavatam. So if everyone, it's a very important mantra. You can, even if you don't know it, you can repeat after me. It's very simple. Krishna Swadhama Pagate Dharma Jnana Dibisaha Kalau Nasta Drishamesha Purarnarko Dhunodhitaha. Krishna is coming to this world to establish dharma, isn't it? He says, Yada yada hi dharmasya. Yes, I'm coming age after age to establish the dharma. Sometimes people think dharma means religion. We can say the most basic definition of dharma is the right way to live. People don't know the right way to live nowadays. You go past Stonebridge Estate and then on the graffiti wall you say, just killing time. So that's not the right way to live, because life is valuable. So why would you be killing time? There's nothing more valuable in the world than time. So people don't know how to spend their time, how to utilize their time, how to get the most out of their time. You see, time management is a big thing now. But we must understand the purpose of life, then we can know the way to manage time. And so the goal of life is not just to do more and more things. The goal of life is to do the right things and live in the right way. So this is what dharma is. So Krishna says, I come to establish dharma. But then Krishna says, the Bhagavatam says, Krishna Swadham. When Krishna goes back to his own abode, he comes. Avatar means he comes down. But then Krishna Swadham. Later on, Krishna leaves again. How many years was Krishna on the planet? 125 years Krishna was on the planet. 11 years in Vrindavan, 18 years in Mathura, and 96 years in Dwarka. So, and then Krishna left after 125 years, and it said when Krishna left, Krishna Swadham Upagate Dharma Jnana Dibishaha. What else left with Krishna? When Krishna left, what else left? Dharma and Gyan, knowledge and religion, or the right way to live, also gradually began to disappear. So then what was the point? What was the point? But the point was, when Krishna came, he left the instructions, he left his pastimes, and those pastimes and instructions were documented by who? Vyasadeva, yes. Srimad Bhagavate Mahamunikrite Kim Va Pareirishvara. Vyasadeva in his maturity compiled everything. And therefore this verse says, Kalau Nasta Drishamesha. Those who have lost their vision in the darkness of Kali Yuga, Purar Narko Dhunodita, they can get light from this scripture. So therefore we are reading Bhagavatam. Somehow or other, the Bhagavatam has to become your best friend. Yes, no problem. You're welcome. As soon as we said best friend, you walked in. So that's very auspicious. You are very dear to the devotees here, clearly. So, yes, Sanatana Goswami says, Madaika Bandhu, Mat Sangin, Madguru, Man Mahadhana. The Bhagavatam is my best friend. The Bhagavatam is my constant companion. When Sanatana Goswami was reading the Bhagavatam, it was like reading a love letter. Yeah. Did you ever receive a love letter in your life? Bhagavan Prabhu? Did you? You did many. Oh, see, you're saying many. Did you know this? Many? My God. Yes. Isn't it? When it comes, or someone special message comes on the what, as soon as you see their name, some chills go, like anticipation. That's amazing. For Sanatana Goswami, the Bhagavatam was like a love letter. Like, now I will open the Bhagavatam. So much anticipation, so much eagerness, so much enthusiasm. Because here he was seeing Krishna. This is an opportunity to see Krishna. This is not just a book. Prabhupada says in every page you can see Krishna if you have the right state of mind and consciousness. So yes, the Bhagavatam is very, very special. It's teaching us. It's our best friend. Actually, it's said that the Vedas, they teach us like a lecturer teaches the students. All of you went to school, isn't it? Or college or university. So a lecturer, very strict, very straight, very disciplined, especially in India. So the Vedas, they are like a teacher. The mood of the Vedas is like a teacher teaching the student. The mood of the Puranas is like a friend teaching a friend. Those stories, anecdotes, some comedy as well, but in it there's all a lesson. So the Puranas are a little bit lighter. They are like friend teaching a friend. Maybe it's a little high. And then there are kavya. Kavya means poetry. There are poetic books as well in the spiritual literatures. And the kavya, they are teaching like a lover teaches another lover. When a lover teaches a lover, they just charm them. They just touch their heart. They just say some words and they can get the message through. So, therefore, poetry is very short. When two people love each other, you don't need to say so many words. No, they just few words is enough. Finish. Because so close. Hearts are so close. So, some literature teaches like a student to a teacher to a student. Some literature teaches like friends. And some literature teaches like lovers. So, which one do you think the Bhagavatam is?
Lovers.
Lovers. Or lovers. Lovers? You think so?
Teacher to a student.
Teacher to a student. What's your experience when you read the Bhagavatam? Does it feel like lovers? Does it feel like friends? Does it feel like teacher? Silpa says all of them. And he's absolutely right. Yes, the verse by the Goswamis say that, and the Bhagavatam teaches like all of them. So some parts of the Bhagavatam very strict. 5th canto. If you do this activity, then this hell is waiting for you. Be in no doubt. And then some of the Bhagavatam is like friends, like very just like Narad Muni comes to Prachina Bharishat and he says, you know what, let me tell you a story. And they're just having, and he's telling him a story like a friend, did you hear about this guy? I tell you a story. And then later on, after Prachina Bharishat hears the whole story, what does he realize? What is the story first? Do you know the story that I'm talking about? Puranjan. Yes, and what happens after Prachina Bharisha hears the whole story? He realizes this is the story of my life. This is the story of my life. And some of the teachings of the Bhagavatam is just like a lover. Very charming, very beautiful, very sweet. 10th canto is like that. No? Very, very sweet, very nice, but still very, very deep. So, if we can establish our relationship with this book, it will give us all the answers and absorb our minds. In the end of the Bhagavatam it says, Sarve Vedanta Saram Hi Srimad Bhagavatam Ishyate Tadra Samrita Triptasya Na Anyatra Shadrati Kvachit. That Sarve Vedanta Saram Hi, the essence of all knowledge, is contained within Bhagavatam. Tad Rasamrita, this is a Amrita, nectar. Not just nectar, is Rasamrita, is full of taste, full of relish, Rasa Gyan. And if you taste it, Na anyatra shad rati kvachit. Your rati, your attention, your affection, your attraction will never go anywhere else. You will just stay here and you will be happy here and you won't look anywhere else. Right now it's difficult to just concentrate on the Bhagavatam. It's difficult to just look at Krishna and concentrate on Krishna. Do you know how you will be able to measure whether you are in samadhi? You understand samadhi, yeah? Samadhi means like spiritual trance. You know what is the definition of someone who has achieved samadhi?
Is that constantly remembering Krishna?
Yeah. And more specifically, 24 hours, but more specifically, if someone can sit down and think of Krishna within their mind for 30 minutes without their mind going anywhere else, then you are in samadhi. Sometimes it looks in japa time as though some devotees are in samadhi, but later on we realize maybe not, maybe different type of samadhi. So it's not so easy just to sit here. How easy it is to just sit here and hear about Krishna, even that's difficult. Because the mind is always going. Janchalam himana Krishna, pramati balavadridam. Very flickering, the mind. Always moving. So, one of the ways in which you can understand if you are advancing in spiritual life is how much you are able to stay with the knowledge of the Bhagavatam and just sit here and hear, sit there and read and just be absorbed. Is your capacity for sitting and being absorbed in Bhagavatam increasing? This is a very good measure of how much you're advancing in spiritual life. Because if you're advancing in spiritual life, the desire to hear about Krishna will be increasing and increasing. There's one devotee in our Manna community, I won't tell you who it is because he'll get embarrassed, but I asked him, he works in the corporate world, so I asked him some years ago, I said to him, what did you do on the weekend? He said, I began reading Bhagavatam at 10 a.m. in the morning. And then I said, and then what did you do? And then he said, I carried on reading. I said, yeah, but then what did you do after you done your 1 hour of reading? Then he said, then I carried on. He said, I read for 12 hours straight. So that's amazing, that someone can have that kind of, be able to hold their mind. So we want to try to get to that point. Someone may say, but I'm not a philosopher, I'm not into, all this analysis and knowledge. No, but we should learn, we should like to hear about Krishna. You don't have to be a philosopher, but to hear about Krishna is very nice. So, let us hear. So as I understand, you're on chapter 3 of Bhagavatam, is it? Yeah. Okay, before I carry on, does anyone have any questions so far? Anything they want to ask, just based on anything I've said so far? Yes?
So you spoke about absorption.
Mm-hmm.
It's very good if you can read and continue on reading. But what about becoming absorbed, but then forgetting what we've read?
Yeah. Once there was a guru and he told his disciple, here's a bucket, I want you to go to the river and just fill it up with water. So he ran to the river, he filled it up with water, and as he was walking back he realized there was holes in the bucket, and by the time he got back the bucket was empty. And so he looked at his guru and he said, I failed, the bucket's full of holes, I'm sorry Guru Maharaj, I'll go again. So then his Guru Maharaj said, yeah, just go and fill it up. So then he went back, he filled it up, and this time he realized there's holes in it. So let me go quick. So he ran. But even though he ran, still by the time he reached, the bucket was empty. So he looked at his crestfallen, looked at his Guru Maharaj, I failed. His Guru Maharaj said, go and fill it up. He went back again, he filled it up. This time he took a rickshaw back. But still, everything had escaped. And then he came in front of the Guru and he said, I failed, I could not follow your instruction. And the Guru said, but what was my instruction? I didn't ask you to bring the water back. I just told you fill up the bucket. I didn't want any water, I just wanted to clean the bucket. So you done the job. You went to the river, you cleaned the bucket, you put the water through it as everything was escaping through, all the dirt left. So we're not entering Goloka Vrindavan with all of this knowledge to share with Krishna. Like now Krishna, I was down there in the material world and I went to all the classes and I've remembered all the verses. I've got my certificate of all the degrees, Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhav, Bhakti Sarvabhauma, Bhakti Vedanta. Here it is for you, Krishna. No, what does Krishna want from you? A pure heart. So the goal of reading Bhagavatam is not to know Krishna. The goal of Bhagavatam is to love Krishna. So it's not an endeavor to, isn't it? Mahaprabhu traveled around South India and then he came to Sri Rangam and there was that one Brahmin who was reading the Bhagavad Gita, but everyone was laughing at him. So Mahaprabhu came to him and he said, they're all laughing at you, but when I look at you, you seem to have so many emotions. So he said, they're laughing at me because I can't read. So Mahaprabhu said, then why you? He said, but my spiritual master told me I should read Gita every day, so I'm trying. But they're laughing at me because I don't know Sanskrit. I can't read. So then Mahaprabhu said, but when I see you looking at the Shastra, you're crying. You have so many emotions. He said, yeah, I can't read the book, but just when I look at the cover and I think of Krishna, who's the Supreme Person, who's Ishvara, Parama, Sachit Ananda Vigraha, the cause of all causes, the proprietor of everything, the controller. When I see that Krishna has become the charioteer of his devotee, he's taken such a humble position that Krishna comes down and just is happy to serve his devotee, then it just touches my heart and it conquers my heart and it makes me cry. And Mahaprabhu said, you've actually understood. So, it's not about knowing God, it's about loving Krishna. Because Bahunam Janmanam Ante Jnanavan Mam prapadyate. After many lives, if you actually become a jnanavan, one who has knowledge, what is the symptom? Mam prapadyate, you surrender. So you have so much knowledge but you don't surrender. So we're not here to become scholars, we're not here to become jnanis. We're here to become devotees. But still, when we have knowledge and when we learn knowledge systematically and we're also able to remember things, it helps us. Because we get very emotional in our life. Have you noticed how emotional we get? Right? You can be having a very, very good morning and then someone just looks at you a little bit funny. And then it's like, you just can't get it. Like when you eat a mango and then the part of the fiber gets caught in your teeth. And then whole day you can't get it out and it's there. And all your attention is going there. So it's like that. Our mind is just so, it just gets so hijacked very, very easily. And so then we need intelligence. Otherwise we become so overwhelmed by our emotions. And so therefore we have to strengthen our intelligence. And therefore if we can learn the philosophy, memorize it, verses, we are doing all of these things because it helps. But then ultimately all of that is just meant to help us to love Krishna. At the end of life, Hare Krishna. I'll tell you a story. My spiritual master, Kadambakanda Maharaj, he was the temple president in Vrindavan. Vrindavan is, India is the land of extremes. You can have like the high mountains and then you have the deserts. In India you have like extreme wealth and then you can have extreme poverty. In India people can be so kind and they can also be so inconsiderate as well. India is like the most peaceful land, the place of meditation, and at the same time the most noisy place you can ever imagine. Car is going down the street, no other car is there, but they're horning. There's no one here, why are you horning? So India is the land of extremes, one English writer he said. So Vrindavan is also an extreme. It's like the most spiritual place, but it's also covered by all of these. So even in Vrindavan today there's a mafia. I'm just giving you the heads up. Yeah, even in Vrindavan there's a mafia. So when my spiritual master was the temple president there, then obviously he was managing and he did some things that the mafia didn't like. So one day he was in the shower and he was taking a shower and all of a sudden a gun came inside the cubicle, bang, shot. So he was shot. He told me this story personally because I had heard that he had got shot. So many times I wanted to massage him just to see the shot. I was crazy. So one time I was massaging him and I saw the actual shot wound. Yeah, so it came through the back. So bang, he got shot. So in that moment, he was thinking, oh my God, blood everywhere. So he thought, I'm losing blood. If I lose blood, then too much blood, then I'll go unconscious. If I go unconscious and there's no help here, I could just die right here. So he thought, somehow or other, let me just struggle out of here and find someone quick. So anyway, he found someone, they took him to the hospital, whatever happened. But then he could not come back to Vrindavan. Because if he would come back, then they would just come for him again, to shoot him again. It's all happening in Vrindavan. Now maybe you're thinking, should I really go? Basically, he couldn't come back to Vrindavan because it was too dangerous. And he said overnight his whole life changed. He lost his service as temple president of Vrindavan. He lost his room in Vrindavan. He lost his residence in Vrindavan. He lost everything. He couldn't even, when he went back to Vrindavan, they had even thrown away all of his books went missing, all of his notepads, years of notes. And when everything went missing, then he realized there will be a point in life when all you're left with is the love that you have for Krishna in your heart. At the end of life, you can't take the bookshelf with you, but you can take the genuine realization you have in your heart. At the end of life, you can't take the beads with you, but you can take the taste you have for the holy name. At the end of life, you can't take your position with you, but you can take the service attitude that you've developed. At the end of life, you can't take any of these things. It's about how much love you've developed in your heart. And so, this is the ultimate purpose of everything, that we have to develop some love. Therefore, Kaviraj Goswami says, Prema dhana vina vyartha daridra jivan das kori vetan more deha prema dhan. That if I don't have love, then I must be considered a very poor soul. A poor soul is one who doesn't have love. Love is what makes you wealthy. So, knowledge is important, but it's ultimately meant to lead to love. And that is what will count at the end of life. So, Prabhupada was staying at Radha Damodar temple, and every day there was this one Bengali widow. You've seen they're very, very small. Compared to me, everyone's small. Very small, but generally, no, they're very short, no? So every day, Prabhupada was staying in Radha Damodar, and every single day she would take this clay pot and go to the Yamuna. And then she would fill it up, and then she would come back and then use that water for Thakurji's service. Every day going back. So sometimes Prabhupada would meet her at the gate. And then one time Prabhupada looked at one devotee and he pointed to her and he said, "This is her last life. She's just waiting. She's just waiting to go back to Krishna. Because she has love. This is it. This is perfection." So yeah, we have to keep that in perspective. But still the knowledge is important. So we try to memorize, and then we forget what to do. Therefore we have to do all these things like acronyms, like PowerPoint presentations and summaries and all of these things, because we forget. So we're trying to remember, but let's keep the goal in mind.
Sure.
Sorry, that was a very long-winded answer. It's nicer than me just speaking. Does anyone else have anything else you want to ask?
Question?
Yes. You have a question?
Yes. You say you don't need to know, you need to love. Unless you know the person at a deeper level, his qualities, attractions, and all sorts of activities and so on, I would have thought that's the beginning of respecting and then loving.
Yeah.
Isn't that right?
Yeah, the more you know about someone, naturally it brings about a love. But in spiritual life, it's also, definitely it's about knowing Krishna, but it's also your reciprocation with Krishna, your interaction with Krishna. Each of us have a relationship with Krishna. We pray to Krishna. Krishna reciprocates in our life. When we're having a dynamic relationship with Krishna, then we feel Krishna is doing things for us, responding to our prayers. Krishna is sending people to help us. All of these things, they'll help us develop our love for Krishna. So, but yes, along with that, hearing about Krishna, that's amazing, for sure.
Thank you.
So, I should say something about chapter 3, because that's what you're on now. So chapter 3 is a very, very important chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto. In chapter 3, Krishna is basically being established as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's interesting terminology, no? Did you ever hear the word Godhead before coming to the... Once I was in Leicester and then I stopped one man, he goes, no, I subscribed to your magazine already, God to Backhead. I said, God to Backhead? No, you mean back to Godhead. God to Backhead. Okay. It's an interesting word, Godhead. Can I ask you, what's the difference between, why didn't Srila Prabhupada just say the Supreme Personality of God? What's the difference between God and Godhead? Why use the word Godhead? Any ideas?
Is it to clarify that he's the supreme, the head, like on top of the...
That he's the top.
Yeah, he's the top.
That to clarify, because there could be many gods, so he's the head God. He's the top God. In the material world, they talk about the top dog, but Krishna is the top God, the head God, the Ishvara Parama. Yes, good. Any other reason? You can think. Why Godhead? What does that denote?
Someone who's in charge, like in school we have teachers and principals, so knowing who's like in charge of everything.
Yeah, so it also denotes the head, the controller. Yes, very good. Head also denotes, a head, a form that God has formed, that God has personality. Yes, so Godhead is a very specific term. So in this chapter, what's being established by Sutta Goswami, who's speaking to the sages, is that Krishna is the source of all incarnations. Okay? In this chapter, text number 28 is a very, very important verse, because Canto 1, chapter 3, 1.3.28. This is a very, very important verse. Does anyone know why this verse is so important? Yes. Yes.
So that tells you that Krishna is the supreme body. So there might be loads of incarnations, but Krishna is the origin. And
Yes. Very good. Yes, you know that verse. Yes. And why is that verse very, very important? Anyone know? Should I read the verse? Yeah. Ete chamsha kala pumsha krishnastu Bhagavan Svayam indrari vyakulam lokam hridayanti yuge yuge. All of the above mentioned incarnations are either plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord, but Lord Sri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. All of them appear on planets wherever there is a disturbance created by the atheists. The Lord incarnates to protect the theists. This is a very, very important verse, because every single Shastra has something called a Paribhasa Sutra. Have you ever heard of this before?
Yeah.
Yeah? What is the Paribhasa Sutra?
The main verse on
The main verse, yes. Paribhasa Sutra means the emperor verse. Jiva Goswami says that all of the verses of the Bhagavatam are like soldiers. But an army of soldiers is led by one general. And one verse leads all of the other verses of the Bhagavatam. That verse is called the Paribhasa Sutra. So the Paribhasa Sutra of the entire Bhagavatam, the entire 18,000 verses, 18,000 soldiers, they are led by this verse, which appears in the 3rd chapter of the 1st canto. And the very, very important line is, Krishna's tu Bhagavan Svayam. Krishna is Svayam Bhagavan, the original personality of Godhead. So what Sutta Goswami does in this chapter is he outlines many, many of Krishna's incarnations. An incarnation of Krishna is known as avatar. Yeah, you've heard this word, there's even a Hollywood movie. Right? So ava, what does ava mean? Like, yeah, you all Gujarati. Ghare, avo. So what does it mean? To come. To descend. Avatar. Tarine means down. So literally, avatar means to come down. Come down from where? From the spiritual world, you come down to the material world. So when Krishna comes down from the spiritual to the material, it's called avatar. So Krishna comes at many times in different forms. And so in this chapter, Sutta Goswami says many of the different times that Krishna came in this world. So in the Bhagavatam, we learn of all the different incarnations of the Lord. We're only hearing about some of the incarnations. Krishna as a tortoise, Krishna as a half man, half lion, Krishna in the form of the most beautiful lady in the creation, Krishna in the form of a fish. But Krishna can appear in all the 8.4 million species of life. And in other planets, there are bigger Bhagavatams which outline more of Krishna's incarnations. So we're just getting a flavor here. So in this third chapter, Sutta Goswami gives a flavor of some of the incarnations of Krishna, but then he concludes by saying all of these incarnations are just having their source in Krishna, who is the Svayam Bhagavan. So Krishna has 6 opulences, isn't it? Aishvaryasya samagrasya viryasya yashashashriya jnana vairagyayascheva sanam bhaga itingana. If you ever find anyone who has these 6 things in an unlimited capacity, you must conclude that this person is God. So Bhagavan means the possessor of these 6 things in full. And what is the first thing? Aishvarya, which means wealth, opulence, wealth. Paisadar. One who has a lot, everything, yeah? Virya, strength. Yasha, fame. Isn't it Yashoda, one who gives fame? Shri, both. Wealth. So Shri means beauty. Yes. Gyan, knowledge. And Vairagya, renunciation. So Krishna has all of these in full. Now when Krishna's incarnations come, they display some of these, but not in full. Some of them may be more prominently in one. Like say for example, which incarnation of Krishna do you think represents wealth? Who has the most wealth of all Krishna's manifestations? Tirupati is, Tirupati is the, my God, oh my God, the gold reserves in Tirupati, oh my God. No, but we can say Narayan, isn't it? Lakshmi Sahasra Sata Sambrahma Sevya Manam, because all the Lakshmis are serving Narayan. Virya, which incarnation of Krishna is fierce? Nishingadev. So then that quality comes out more. Yasha, which incarnation of Krishna is famous? So famous that sometimes even they chant his name before Krishna's name. Ram, isn't it? Many places you go in India, it will be Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. So Ram, very famous. Ram Rajya, you know, he was famous, the ideal in so many ways. Beauty. Which of Krishna's incarnations has beauty? Bewildered. Even Lord Shiva. Mohini Murti. Gyan, which knowledge of Krishna, came as a small boy and instructed and gave so much gyan to his mother. Kapila Dev. Yeah, Kapila Dev, very, very powerful instructions. And Vairagya, which of Krishna's incarnations are most detached? They live in the Himalayas. 2 Naranarayan Rishis. We don't know so much about them, but so you see, all the incarnations, they represent different aspects of Krishna's opulence, but Krishna has all of those things in full. So therefore this verse is basically teaching us that the goal of Bhagavatam is to take us to the source of all incarnations. Some people think Krishna is an imagination. Later on, they may not think Krishna is an imagination, but they think Krishna is ultimately impersonal. Later on, they may realize that Krishna is not impersonal, but they think Krishna is an incarnation himself. But later on, when they realize that Krishna is an incarnation, they realize that Krishna is the Supreme Person. Sometimes later on, the problem they'll have is they'll feel Krishna is immoral. So at every point, people can misunderstand Krishna. The first misunderstanding is that Krishna is just an imagination. People say that we project ourselves on God because we have two hands, because we have two eyes, because we do, therefore we think that God is like that. Right? But actually it's the other way round. We have these things because God has those things, because God has a form. So sometimes people say Krishna is an imagination, it's just a figment, it's just for the weak, it's not, it doesn't have any grounding, it's just a mythology. These are many of the things that people say. Later on they think that Krishna is impersonal. No, God is just represented in this way, the deity to help you to concentrate. But later on, once you establish your meditation, then you realize that you don't need any form, that God is impersonal. But Krishna says no, because the essence we're trying to experience in life is love. And you can't love an energy. You can't have a relationship with an energy. You have a relationship with a person. Later on, someone may think Krishna is an incarnation. No, I've read it in the Cambridge Dictionary. Krishna is an incarnation of Vishnu. Is that true? That's not true?
It's also true.
It's also true. Yeah, because when Krishna comes in this world, then he comes through Vishnu. All incarnations in this world come through Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. But where does Kshirodakshaya Vishnu come from? Krishna. So if I said, Bhagavatananda Prabhu came through the door, that's true. Because you came through the door to get into this room. But you weren't born from the door. You existed before the door. But the door is what you came through in order to be in this room. So is Krishna an incarnation of Vishnu? Yes, because he came through Vishnu. But is he the source of Vishnu ultimately? Yes. Therefore, Krishna's tu Bhagavan Svayam. People don't understand this, you see. Therefore, they make mistakes. Therefore, later on, when they realize, no, Krishna is not an incarnation, he's God. But then they think, but Krishna does so many immoral things. Krishna's parents were criminals. They were in jail. Krishna himself escaped from jail. He's a fugitive. And then Krishna killed a nurse. He's an assassin. And then Krishna broke the car. He's a vandal. And then Krishna lied. I mean, he's you can come up with so many things. Like, it just seems like there's so many activities. Once we did at Janmashtami, we did a drama called Krishna on Trial. And so Krishna was there, and then there was a judge, and then all the arguments were given. So all of these things are there. People don't understand Krishna. Krishna is the most lovable object. Nietzsche, he was a German philosopher, and he said, God is dead. But later on in his writings, people don't know, Nietzsche also said, I will only believe in a God who knows how to dance. Because most people, when they think of God, they think of God as a very heavy controller, a judge, one who's dictating, controlling. But Krishna is not that. He's just very loving. He's very kind. He's very friendly. He's full of color, charisma, character. And so the Bhagavatam is introducing us to Krishna, who has all of these things. And therefore we have to understand Krishna's personality through the pages of Bhagavatam. Let me stop there and see whether anyone would like to ask anything on that. Anything I've said, or any questions on Krishna in general. Anyone? Yes?
So it's a question on the incarnation. Says from Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, all the incarnations come. So in Dwapara Yuga, when Krishna comes as himself, so does all the other incarnations, do they join him? Or do, so what happens? Because when he comes in Dwapara Yuga, we call him as a Leela avatar as well, so he's also an incarnation, but he comes also as himself. So, so what's the right way to call him when he comes in Dwapara Yuga?
Yeah, nice question. Yes, these are also technicalities we must understand. That also when we say Krishna comes, there is also Krishna when he comes himself, the original Krishna. There is an original Krishna. And then there is Krishna who comes, who's an expansion that Krishna creates of himself. So it's said that, okay, so now we have to rewind a little bit. Brahma lives for 100 years, okay? So in Brahma's year, there are 360 days, just like in our year, okay? So in one day of Brahma, there are 14 manus. Yeah, understand? Manus? Yeah, 14 manus. And each manu lasts for 72 Divya Yugas. A Divya Yuga is basically Satya, Treta, Dwapara and Kali. Okay? So, right now, just if you are wondering, right now we are in the 51st year of Brahma's life. Our Brahma is 51 years old. We are in New Year's Day of his 51st life. Yeah? So the New Year's Day of his 51st year. And we are in the 7th Manu. So in Brahma's day, up there somewhere, he's 51, it's New Year's Day, and the time is roughly about midday. Because we're in the 7th Manu, and 7 is right in the middle of 14. And in the 7th Manu, we are in the 28th Divya Yuga, which is known as, so we're in Vaivashvata Manu and we're in the 28th Divya Yuga. And in the Dwapara Yuga of this 28th Divya Yuga, Krishna appears, the original one. So 5,000 years ago when Krishna appeared, it was the original Krishna. But in all the other Divya Yugas, Krishna comes, but it's not the original Krishna. So this is a very special time. So sometimes Krishna comes, most of the time Krishna comes as his expansion, but once in a day of Brahma, Krishna comes himself. And that's in the 7th Manu, the 28th Divya Yuga of the 7th Manu, which is the one we're in at the moment, conveniently. So when that Krishna comes, then it's said because he's the original Krishna, all incarnations are residing within him. But in other Divya Yugas, it's an expansion of Krishna, like that. Sorry, that was very technical. But now you know, our Brahma is how many years old? 51. And what day is it of his 51st year? And what's the rough time?
Midday.
About midday. So that, you know.
Just a clarification point. I was reading the Bhagavatam. Is it all the demigods that get to come down with him?
Yeah, the demigods come, but when Krishna comes, it's said just like within the cow's body, all the demigods are present. So if you circumambulate the cow, it's like you're honoring all the demigods. So it's said within Krishna, because Krishna is the source of everything. Sarva karana karanam. Everything rests within Krishna. So we can also say all incarnations are also resting within Krishna. So in that sense, when Krishna comes, like everyone is present.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah?
A follow-up question. You know,
Okay.
you say that Krishna doesn't come in contact with material world. They're saying there's incarnation that's come through. I mean, how do you explain
Krishna
that?
doesn't come in contact with the material world?
But then he...
Means Krishna comes here, but when we say he doesn't get in contact with the material world, he's not influenced by it. He's here, but he's not here. He's not affected by it. Like that. He's pure. Om pavitra pavitro va sarvavastham gatopi va. What to speak of him becoming him becoming contaminated just by thinking of him, an impure place becomes pure. What to speak of his own, like that.
In Western world, there is a GOD, generator, operator and destroyer.
GOD, yeah.
We call it Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. Then they ask that, then why do you say Krishna is supreme? How do you answer that?
Yeah, because even Brahma and Shiva are worshipping Krishna. So therefore, what is Shiva, what is he chanting on his Rudraksha beads? When we see a picture of Shiva by his crescent on his head, who is there? Shankarshan. And on his Rudraksha beads, he's chanting Shankarshan's name. Who is Brahma worshipping? End of every single verse, he's saying, Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. I'm worshipping you, Govinda. You're the original, Ishvara Parama. So why would we worship them when even they don't claim that position? So the basic problem with most people is that they are not reading Shastra. Tasmat Shastra Pramanam te karya karya vyavastiti. Krishna says Shastra is Praman. The evidence is Shastra. So if anyone makes any claim that this is the truth or that is the truth, then the very next question we have to ask them is, where does it say that in Shastra? No, I heard it. Okay, you heard it, that's nice, but where did you hear it from? You see, so basically most people are, they say most people's mind is like a cement machine. It's like fully mixed up and thoroughly set. So people are so mixed up. They have all kinds of notions, all kinds of ideas. Therefore, when you go to most people's homes from, I'm sorry to say, Hindu backgrounds, they really don't have a clue, unfortunately. Because no one took the time to read Shastra.
Thank you very much.
You see? So.
Can I ask a follow-on question?
Yes.
So about this Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. So we know how Brahma appeared on the lotus in the navel of Vishnu. But at least I don't know how Shiva appeared. And
Shiva appeared is explained in Bhagavatam also, that basically Brahma had many sons. So 4 of his sons were known as the Kumaras. And the Kumaras, so when Brahma had sons, because he was told by Krishna that now you have to populate the universe. So then he had sons. So then he had 4 sons. He thought, great, they're young, they're intelligent, they're healthy, they're effulgent. And then he told them, I want you to create now, procreate. And they said, no, we are Neshtika Brahmachari. And Brahma got so angry. He got so angry that, no, you're my sons, I've been given this task, why are you not fulfilling? And from his anger, from the middle of his eyebrows, came Shiva. So that's how Shiva appeared. And then Shiva has different expansions.
Hi Krishna Maharaj. I just wanted to ask, the Lord Chaitanya that appeared in this Kali Yuga, is it the same scenario like how you were explaining with Lord Krishna, that he comes as the full Supreme Personality of Godhead, not incarnation?
So if you read Laghu Bhagavatamrita by Jiva Goswami, I think Sanatana Goswami, but by the Goswamis, in Laghu Bhagavatamrita, the avatars are explained. Lord Chaitanya also does not come in every single Dwapara Yuga. It's said that Gaura Bhagavan comes, the golden form of the Lord, but it's not always Lord Chaitanya. So when Krishna comes himself in the 28th Divya Yuga of the 7th Manu, Vaivashvata Manu, directly after that Lord Chaitanya comes, who's incredibly merciful. So therefore we can understand we are in a very fortunate time, because Krishna his self same appeared, and straight after when Krishna appears, Lord Chaitanya appears, who's Mahavadanyaya, very merciful. But it's not that Lord Chaitanya appears in every single Kali Yuga, although in the Kali Yuga Krishna does come in a golden form to teach the Yuga Dharma, but not necessarily Lord Chaitanya as we know it.
So this Lord Chaitanya is full Supreme Personality, not incarnate?
Yes, yes. And that is, if you read Chaitanya Charitamrita, then that is what Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is establishing in the Adi Leela. That this Lord Chaitanya is Krishna, Vrajendra Nandan Krishna. Yes. Hey, nice to see you.
Question here, but you said about his form, and the form that he comes down in, that's the actual form. There's no energy, but you kind of talked about that. But in the Gita, when he shows his universal form, what's the...
So loudly, please.
Sorry?
Loudly.
Oh,
yeah.
The universal form he shows Arjuna.
Yes.
How does that translate to the original, the form of Krishna we see?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Sense, right?
Yeah. So what is the universal form, and how does that relate to Krishna? Here, Krishna, as we see Krishna as the cowherd boy. So Krishna as the cowherd boy is the original form of Krishna. Shyamameva param rupam madhu purivara veyakai shaurakam dhyayam adya eva rasopara. Rupa Goswami says, Shyamameva param rupam. The ultimate form of Krishna is Krishna as a cowherd boy, Shyam Sundar. Puri Madhu Puri Vara, the ultimate home of Krishna is Vrindavan. Adya Keshaudakam Dhyayam, the age that Krishna eternally lives at is 11 years old. He's a Keshora, that's his eternal age. And Adya Eva Paro Rasa, you see here this beautiful picture. So Rupa says that, and the most confidential type of relationship is Krishna as a cowherd boy in Vrindavan with the gopis. So this is the supreme personality of Godhead. You see, what's happening in the Bhagavatam is first we're establishing the supreme personality of Godhead, who is Krishna. Yeah, that wasn't a trick question. And then later on what's happening in the Bhagavatam is we're learning who's the supreme personality of Krishna. Because Krishna has many personalities. So first we're learning that the supreme personality of Godhead is Krishna, and then later on we're learning that the supreme personality of Krishna is Shyam Sundar, Vrindavan with the gopis. So this is the supreme. Okay, so now where does the universal form fit into all of that? The universal form fits in because when Krishna comes down to the material world, then what he's doing is he's helping Arjuna to understand that he's the supreme personality of Godhead. And he's establishing for generations going forward that he's the supreme personality of Godhead. And so what Krishna does is that although this is his supreme form in the spiritual world, to establish that he's also simultaneously the controller, the creator, the sustainer, the maintainer of everything, he shows this universal form to show that all the planets, all the demigods, everything in creation is actually contained within his body. And so that's the vision that Krishna gives to Arjuna when he shows him the universal form. That he's showing Arjuna that actually everything is resting within my body, in the sense that everything, the universe and all living entities have their origin in Krishna. And so he shows this amazing vision of how everything is situated within his body. But although everything is situated within his body, he simultaneously has his own separate existence within the creation as Krishna. And that's why you can't describe Krishna with words. He's very, very near, and at the same time He's very, very far away. He's within your heart, but at the same time He's outside. And these seem like contradictions, but they're not contradictions because both things are true, although they seem like they're separate. So on one hand, the universal form is everything is within Krishna, but then Krishna is also part of that universe as well. So which one is it? Well, both. Just like I'll give you an English saying and then you tell me the opposite one, yeah? For example, if I say, birds of a feather flock together. So what would be the opposite of that? Already given one of the words actually. Opposites attract. Birds of a feather flock together. Agree? Opposites attract. Agree? But that's contradictory. Or if I say, for example, too many cooks spoil the broth, or too many masis, Kurukshetra in the kitchen. What would be the opposite of that? Many hands make light work. So which one is true? Many hands make light work? That's true. But too many cooks in the kitchen messes it up? Is that true? That's also true. But it's a contradiction. But they're both true in their own way. Right? Or if I say to you, actions speak louder than words. But silence is golden. Or you could say, pen is mightier than the sword. So which one is true? Both. So Krishna is a cowherd boy in Vrindavan having a wonderful time. Yes, true. And simultaneously everything is within Krishna, yeah, true. How is it possible? They're both true. So Krishna is within everything and He's outside of everything at the same time. Therefore, who can understand Krishna? Very difficult. That's why He's the Supreme Person. Yeah, someone here, a question?
We're reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. There are 4 slokas, chatu slokas, which are the basis of Brahma passing on those to Narad Muni and then onward ultimately to Vyasadeva. And from that came out the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. So when you say there's that king verse, the 28th
Paribhasa Sutra, yeah.
Is that part of that 4 slokas of the Bhagavatam?
Yeah. So everyone understands the history. At the time of creation, Krishna imparted the whole Bhagavatam to Brahma in 4 verses. So if you go to 2nd canto, 9th chapter, verses number 33 to 36, these are known as the Chatu Shloki Bhagavatam. So how does this Paribhasa Sutra fit into that? Yes, the essence of what is described here, because what's the very first verse of that Chatu Shloki? Krishna says, Aham evasam evagre nanyad yat sadasat param. Before this creation I was existing, during this creation I'm maintaining, and after everything is annihilated I will continue to exist. And what is being said in this verse? Krishna's tu Bhagavan Svayam. So what is being said is the same thing. That everything is coming from Krishna because Krishna was the one before and Krishna is the one within everything, whom everything enters after. You see? But we call this the Paribhasa Sutra because later on when the Bhagavatam was expanded into 18,000 verses, then this verse specifically was chosen by Jiva Goswami as the emperor verse.
Emperor verse, yes.
Yeah, the Paribhasa.
Thank you.
Got a little bit technical today. I hope it wasn't too technical.
A quick question on Zoom here from Yogesh, and he's asking, I want to ask, how did Shiva and Parvati Mataji come together? And who was she the daughter of?
Okay, that is a long story, and I'll come back to that. I just want to stay on the Bhagavatam for now. I'll come back to that, but because if I get diverted in that, is there any other questions with relation to the Bhagavatam, specifically what we're talking about here, and Krishna's existence, Krishna's identity? Anything you want to ask about this? Yes.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. I don't know my question, how stupid it is, but so you talk about incarnations. I want to ask about, there's so many incarnations of Vishnu. Why don't we worship all of them? Like in temple, I see we worship Lord Nrsimhadev, we worship Ram, Lakshman, Sita, just Ram, and then we worship Lord Krishna and then Jagannath. But we don't worship the other incarnations of Lord Vishnu. Why is that? Or
yeah, that's a very good question. Rupa Goswami says that three forms of the Lord are prominent for Vaishnavas or worshippers of Krishna, and that's Krishna, Ram, and Nrsimhadev. So we may say, why those three specifically? Because those three specifically represent more of the potency of Krishna. That's one reason. Like in Ram, more of the qualities of the incarnation of Krishna, the personality of Krishna, more of the qualities are coming out more than other incarnations like Matsya or Varaha. In these incarnations of Ram and Nrsimhadev, the relationship of affection with the devotees is also much closer. With Varahadev, Matsya, or even Vamandev, or Buddha, or you don't find that kind of intimacy of relationship. And so it's said that these three are specifically very, very important, because they're helping us to develop bhakti, because the relationship of this avatar and the devotees is nourishing our bhakti, and therefore as Gaudiya Vaishnavas we focus on those three. Jagannath is basically just Krishna. Yeah, so Jagannath is Krishna. You know the story of, there are many stories, but it's said that once Krishna moved to Dwarka at a certain point, and then what happened is, in the middle of the night, although Krishna was in Dwarka and he was surrounded by all his queens, in the middle of the night he would chant the names of the Brajabasis. He would chant the names of the Gopas, the Gopis, just like. So they were wondering, like, Krishna is here, he has everything, all of us are here, the palaces, but still he's remembering Vrindavan. So one time the queens of Dwarka, they went to Rohini. Rohini is the mother of Balaram, because she was in Vrindavan. So they asked her, like, what is it about the pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan that's so special, that Krishna is always remembering these pastimes? Rohini said, no, I can't tell you those pastimes, because if I tell you those pastimes and somehow or other Krishna hears, he will go into ecstasy. So they said, no, you come in, we will be in a room, you narrate the pastimes of Vrindavan, and what we will do is we will put Subhadra on the door. Is it Subhadra or? Subhadra, I think. Yeah, Subhadra on the door, and she will watch out, and if Krishna and Balaram come, then she will tell us, and then we'll stop talking. So I said, okay, we'll do it. So all the queens sat in the room, and then Rohini began talking about Vrindavan and the love of the devotees that they have for Krishna in Vrindavan. And everyone was thinking, wow, the Brajabasis have so much love for Krishna. And as Subhadra was hearing about Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, she went into ecstasy. So her eyes became very big, she became stunned, her body contracted. And therefore she was now unconscious. And what happened is Krishna and Balaram also started walking towards the room. Now she was supposed to alert, but she had gone into ecstasy. And as they approached, they were thinking, why is she like this? So then they came and then they began hearing. And as they began hearing Rohini talk about the love of the Brijabasis, then Krishna and Balaram also went into ecstasy. Their eyes became very big, they became stunted. So now there was Krishna, Balaram and Subhadra who had all gone into ecstasy. And then at that point, Narad Muni came. He always comes. So Narad Muni came, and then he was like also amazed at looking at these three forms, and he said, in the future, at some time, in some place, these three forms will manifest and they'll be worshipped. Krishna will be worshipped as the Lord of the universe. So Jagannath is Krishna, but just Krishna in ecstasy. So therefore we worship Jagannath because it's Krishna. And then we worship Lord Chaitanya because Lord Chaitanya is the Yuga avatar, Krishna himself, who came in this age to deliver us. Therefore Gauranitai are our worship. So these are the basic main forms that we worship. Krishna because he's a supreme person, Ram and Nishingadev because they teach us about the love and the affection of the devotee and God. Jagannath is Krishna, and Lord Chaitanya because he is the Yuga avatar. So like that. And of course there are variations. In Vrindavan we worship Krishna Balaram, and in some temples we also have Srinath Ji, Gopal Ji, which is Krishna who is lifting Govardhan hill. But these are all forms of Krishna. So
Maharaj, can I ask another very quick question?
yes.
If nobody else has a question.
No, you can ask.
It might be a silly question, but I was just hearing a Bhagavatam class the other day. So Arjuna, so Krishna was his friend, and just before the Bhagavad Gita was related to him, and then throughout that he realized that Krishna is the supreme. But when he sees Krishna, when he thinks about him, he sees the 400 forms of Krishna. When Ashvatthama was
About to be, yeah.
and then Krishna says something to him, but he sees the 400 form of Krishna. So why is that so? Why not Krishna in his original form, the 200 form? Why does he see Narayan?
At that moment with Ashvatthama?
Yeah, so why does Arjuna see an incarnation of Krishna as opposed to seeing the original Krishna?
Well, in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna sees everything. He sees Krishna in the two-handed form, he sees Krishna in the four-handed form, and then he sees Krishna in the universal form. He sees Krishna in all the roops. Specifically, Krishna manifested, it's said actually that Krishna manifested the four-handed form in that incident with Ashvatthama because he needed 2 extra hands to hold everyone back. Yeah, I think Bhima was quite angry, and then Draupadi was there, so like Krishna needed 2 extra hands just to keep everyone in check and just say like, okay.
So it's not that Narayan was Arjuna's Ishta as such?
No. Arjuna and Krishna are friends. They are eternally friends, the best of friends. And so they're in a relationship of friendship, like that. Yeah. Anyone else like to ask anything?
Yes, could you explain about how Balaram and Krishna directs in the Bhagavatam the strength, qualities, potency, they're all same, both of them. But you said earlier, Svayam Krishna is.
Yeah. So are you asking me, is Balaram Krishna stronger than Krishna?
You can't equate Balaram with Krishna, can you? He has to be lower or equal.
Srila Prabhupada said Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and Balaram is the Supreme Personality of Servitor Godhead. So Balaram is also actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he's in the role of being a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he's assisting in Krishna's pastimes. So strength-wise, the same. You have to ask them that one, I don't know. Even the cowherd boys sometimes defeat Krishna. So Krishna, all strength is coming from Krishna, and sometimes Krishna will invest a certain amount of strength so that he himself is defeated. So anything's possible. Ultimately, but Balaram plays the role of giving us strength, that we can say. Krishna invests Balaram with the potency of strength so that Balaram can empower all the devotees with strength. Therefore, the Guru is said to be the representative of Balaram. Balaram is the Adi Guru. Nityananda is the Adi Guru because Nityananda and Balaram are the same. And then the Guru is the representative of them. So from the Guru, from Nityananda, from Balaram is coming spiritual strength. Because Krishna is attracting us. But even though we're attracted by Krishna, we're also attracted by all the other things of this world. We're also diverted by all the other things of this world. And therefore Balaram is giving us the strength to stay focused on the path.
The way to Krishna is through Balaram as well.
Yes. Yes, you can't get through Krishna unless you get the mercy of Balaram, just like you can't get the mercy of Caitanya if you don't get the mercy of Nityananda. And just like you can't achieve the Supreme Person unless you go through his representative, the Guru. So yes, there's always a way to get there. Yes.
How does Narayan relate to Krishna?
Narayan is an expansion of Krishna. So you understand the difference between an expansion and an incarnation. And an incarnation is an expansion of Krishna that comes down to the material world. But an expansion that stays in the spiritual world is known as an expansion. So if the expansion of Krishna comes down, it's known as an incarnation. But if the expansion stays in the spiritual world, it's known as an expansion. Therefore, Narayan is known as an expansion of Krishna. It's Krishna who is in the Vaikuntha planets, Krishna, who's engaging with his devotees, with Lakshmi, Devi, and all of the devotees in the spiritual world. And so that's another form of Krishna in Krishna's majesty, in his opulence, in which devotees serve him in the mood of reverence, like that. Yes, we should stop soon, I guess, yeah? One, yeah. One or two. We'll stay on Krishna today.
Yeah.
Can I ask about the qualities? I think I know that Krishna has more quality than Vishnu. What about other incarnations of expansions of? Is it same qualities as Vishnu? How does it?
Yeah, so this is also described in Nectar of Devotion by Rupa Goswami. So Krishna has, the living entities have, in total it's said there's 64 qualities. So living entities have 50 of them in some lesser quantity. Then Lord Shiva, I think it said he has 50 in a higher quantity. Then Vishnu has 60 qualities in full. And Krishna has 4 extra qualities that even Vishnu doesn't have. And therefore Krishna has 64 qualities. Therefore, in one sense, we say Krishna and Vishnu, there's not. Siddhanta tastva bedepi Shrisha Krishna Swarupayo Rasenot Krishyate Krishna Rupamesha Rasastiti. Mahaprabhu said this to Vyankata, who was in Sri Rangam worshipping Vishnu. And he mentioned this verse. Siddhanta tastva bedepi. In identity, Shri Isha. Shri Isha means Vishnu, the controller of Lakshmi Devi. Shrisha Krishna. Between Vishnu and Krishna, Swarupayo, there's no difference. Dvebedepi, there's no difference in identity. They're both the Supreme Person. Rasanot Krishyate Krishna. But when it comes to rasa, charm, sweetness, relish, charisma, then Krishna has these extra qualities which make him the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So yes, Krishna has 4 extra qualities. Rupa Madhurya, he has a beautiful form. Prema Madhurya, he displays a very, very sweet type of love. Venu Madhurya, he has a flute. Narayan has no flute. And Leela Madhurya, he has a certain exchange with his devotees which you don't find in any other incarnation. So therefore, because of these 4 extra qualities, Krishna has an extra charm, he has extra attraction and beauty. Therefore, he is all attractive. Like that. Did that answer your question? And more specifically, you're asking something.
About other incarnations?
Yeah, and the other incarnations, so they, yes, they may also display these qualities, but again, not in full. Like I mentioned, Nishingadev, he comes and his the strength that he represents is like, okay, that's like the strength. But, the knowledge or the beauty or that aspect is not necessarily represented in that way. Isn't it? Like sometimes people come and see Nishingadev, it's like Godruma, he told me once someone came and the person said, "What is that? Who is that?" And Godruma says, "That's what happened to the last person who refused to give a donation." So, it's maybe not as charming, in that way. So different incarnations are representing different prominence of different qualities. So yeah, it's like that. They show different things. Yes, Srinivas.
Lord Chaitanya showed 21 hours of different incarnations, right? Mahaprakash. So he never did that. Krishna never even did that. So like you said, Lord Chaitanya is most merciful.
Yes.
So he showed how he's the origin of all the avatars also.
Yes. And if we want to reach Vrindavan, then we have to go through Lord Chaitanya. So if we want to reach Krishna in this age, then ultimately we have to go through Lord Chaitanya. Because it's said that when you dive into the ocean of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, then eventually you'll emerge from that ocean and you'll find yourselves at the banks of Vrindavan, at the entrance to Vrindavan. So we don't really have the purity, we don't have the strength to get to Krishna because we don't have that kind of love, we don't have that kind of intensity of devotion that the Brajabasis have. We're very weak in Kali Yuga, we have so many impurities. So how will we develop that intensity of devotion? For that we need mercy. And for that Krishna comes in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and gives us the chanting of the Maha Mantra, gives us the Bhagavatam, and gives us service. Because it's only through service and and giving to others. Lord Chaitanya's mood is a mood of giving. So all of you, like you went out on the marathon, isn't it? Everyone here, many devotees, yeah? Your team did how many books this year? Radha Govinda Sanga, right?
Almost 500 books.
Amazing, wonderful.
Including two Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Yeah. So that is that kind of service, that's what's going to get us. There's a verse in the Quran, If you don't know any verses in the Quran, here I'll share one with you now. It's a nice verse, actually. In the Quran it says, if you pray, then it takes you halfway to God. If you fast, then it takes you to the door of God. But if you give charity, then God will be so conquered that He'll open the door from the inside and let you in. So that's a very powerful verse, because what it means is if you pray, that's nice, that will take you halfway to God. But when you fast, it means you do something, you do some activity, you make a commitment, so that takes you even further. But even that commitment is not enough, because the door's still locked. But when you give charity, when you serve, when you're selfless, when you go out of your way to help others, then what God will do is He'll become so conquered by that He'll open the door from the inside, and then you'll be able to enter into the spiritual world. So how can we enter into the spiritual world, into Vrindavan? If we take the mood of Lord Caitanya, which is a mood of great generosity, great kindness, compassion, and we give to others, then we can enter into Vrindavan.